So let me just talk about what I think Riot is cooking up here for the new patch, because yesterday I went over it but didn't see any numbers. Now today we have some numbers, so okay. So they're saying they're gonna increase Voracious Atakhan status duration after being killed to 15 seconds, in addition to increasing the reward for claiming the GA false life to 200 gold per player. So this already happened, right? So I'm not sure, like, this was last patch, and now this patch is gonna be after you kill someone with the Voracious Atakhan buff, you're gonna have to wait 15 seconds before you respawn. So it's like a half less death timer. I guess it's like a half shorter death timer. But like, my take on this is very simple. Like, this Voracious Atakhan is complete design failure. It is just following the steps of Chemtech Soul buff, where they had to rework it, right? This is just a complete design failure. I haven't seen a single professional player that enjoys playing with or against the buff. I haven't seen anyone from high elo really being excited about this change. Like, in fact, I haven't seen anyone mention that they like this being in the game. So to me, like, they're gonna keep nerfing it until it becomes completely useless. Plus, on top of that, I don't know how they're gonna address the fact that Voracious Atakhan spawns every single game in professional play, yet it never spawns, or like it spawns very rarely in solo queue. So I don't know. Again, my take is Voracious Atakhan needs to be reworked, and Atakhan spawn should be 50-50, so you get equal number of it in pro and solo queue instead of it being damage done and kills done. That's what I think. Domination keystones, okay, void grubs, nerf to void grubs, okay, so that's gonna mean that priority on dragons are gonna become maybe a little bit more important, especially when you play like a jungler like Vi, instead of trying to contest and running to grubs at minute 6, you might give them to the enemy if they have stronger champs at level 6, and then you take a dragon and you scale with dragons and they get less with grubs, right? Tank Jace, okay, and Skarner Viega Wukong. So they added a Wukong nerf to this patch, which I'm really happy about. It's something I mentioned yesterday, that like Wukong is blatantly overpowered, and it's weird they're not nerfing him. So I guess they changed their mind. Okay, so we're gonna see a one by buff. So usually when I see buff and nerfs, Ra doesn't do much. But I feel like this patch, I mean, some of the buffs look very interesting. So Evelyn is getting 5 to 65 damage, which is which is a lot. And this is the second max ability, by the way. Yeah, it's also like more damage on empowered E, right? Like empowered E is getting, what is this, 5 to 65 damage. Like, it's a lot, right? Like, it's a good Evelyn buff. She needs damage to execute people. It's a very good buff against squishes as well, right? If you buy magic resist against Evelyn, I mean, this is not gonna help a lot for Evelyn against tanks, right? This is mainly like a mid-game buff, and it's mostly against squishes. So then Jax gets like no like this mana region being up is like useless. He gets like 7 mana per minute, so that's like whatever. Health per level goes up by 3, which is like nice. That's like 54 health, right, at level 18, or like a little bit less, 51. Yeah, I guess it's nice. And then our hit damage goes up by 5 as well, 5 to 15. So 5 level 1, 15 level 3. It's an alright, but this Jax buff seems to be very small to me. Very, very small. This is not going to be 1% win rate. Kayn, Q base damage up by 20, and Ra's damage Q unchanged. So this damage buff only works once you get your Shadow Assassin Kayn. And, you know, Shadow Assassin Kayn can't always Q in, right? Like a lot of times he uses Q to escape or to move around, and uses only W and ult mainly for the damage too. So like, yeah, it's a nice buff. It's a nice buff, I guess. It's gonna be some win rate. So Nasus is gonna get a revert. They're buffing passive lifesteal from 9 to 21 to 12 to 24. So if I remember, Nasus passive used to have Nasus passive got nerfed by 2%, I think. So now they're giving him 3% back. So it's going to be, I believe, stronger than it used to be, if I'm not misremembering right now the numbers. And it's going to be a really good buff. This is minimum 1% win rate, possibly even more. I think this buff is going to be really insane. People do not realize that how strong lifesteal is on Nasus, because he just constantly auto-attacks, and it also synergizes with Q. And also, early game is kind of Nasus' weakness. By giving him more lifesteal, you make him able, you make him basically able to lane a lot easier, right? Then we have we have Quinn. So another bounce buff here, 20% on the first maxed ability. It's a good buff. It's a good buff. Queen likes attack speed, because especially with like lethality build or whatever, she doesn't build a lot of attack speed, so getting it more from a spell. It's a very nice buff, and I believe 80% was the number in the past, like years ago on Queen before the nerf W. So this is just a revert to the old number. Rakan, why the fuck are they buffing him? W cooldown goes from 16 to 10 to 14 to 10. So 2 seconds off in early game. I think Rakan usually maxes W first, so by level 9 the buff won't do much. This is just an early trading buff where he will have a little bit more trading power and escape power in the early game. Overall, I don't think this buff is very big, but it's like a nice buff. Samira, E attack speed duration up by 2 seconds. It's nice. 2 seconds. I mean, it's an alright buff, right? Like, not much to say. I don't think it's gonna make Samira really come back or make her like Esther or something. Swain, passive max stat per stack, I guess. Passive HP, 12 to 15. Nice. I don't mind that, I guess. Even though, like, the problem with buffing HP in Swain is that he already gets so much HP. Like, every item he builds is HP. So, like, giving him more HP is not as nice as giving him more armor, right? Or giving him some MR or something like that. So, it's nice, I guess. It kind of rewards Swain in matchups where you can stack a lot and also good players, I guess. And then E-Rape ratio up by 10%. So it's also an alright buff, but remember, Swain does not buy a lot of AP. So this is like, I don't know, 10 to 20 damage at most in mid game, right? It's not a lot. Thresh, 2 more armor. So nice buff to early game. Very little buff, I guess. And then he gets armor from souls as well, right? So this buff is a bit smaller than you might think. And then Q damage up from 100 to 300 to 100 to 320 plus some AP ratio buff, which is also works with the passive because Thresh gets AP ratio. Thresh, Riot has really put a lot of damage to Thresh Q over the years. And honestly, like when they keep doing buffs like this to Thresh, it kind of just makes him max Q. Like you kind of just need to max Q. And if you hit Q, it's a big bomba nuke damage in early game. And if you don't, well, then the champ doesn't do anything. So I think this is like a nice placebo buff or whatever. Like he still has issues as a champion. So yeah, okay, we got some buffs here. So now we move to the nerf section. Cassiopeia Q AP ratio to 65 and W AP ratio per second 15 to 10%. So this kind of stinks. Cassiopeia Q used to be 80% AP ratio in the past, I think, or 90, one of those two. And now it's 65%. God damn, they nerfed this so fucking much. I'm personally a little bit of a hater of how Riot has balanced out Cassiopeia. They basically made her better for average play, worse for Hyla specifically, because they gave her better mana for a lot less AP. And guess what? Good players are better at managing mana, so it was less of a buff for them. It really sucks that a champion like Cassiopeia is losing damage when, you know, when damage is kind of what she needs, I guess. Like, I don't know. I just think like this champion is not gonna see really pro play that much, I think, especially when we go down the line. And yeah, Galio held down by 32. So it's like so first of all, they nerfed it by 32 because they gave him exactly 600 because it's a flat number. And second of all, Riot usually nerfs 30 health of champions to give them like to nerf them by around 1% win rate in high MMR. This is a high MMR skewed Galio nerf, which is very weird to me because as far as I can remember, Galio performs better in low MMR, so it's a weird nerf. But I don't think this nerf is very big. Galio missing 30 health is not the same as a Jinx missing 30 health, right? Galio already builds a lot of HP items in his build. And this 30 health only really matters in lane, where you're getting like a half an auto attack in on him. But Galio can stat check / survive most lanes very easily right now, so I don't think this really does anything to the champion. So, tank Jace nerf, as I predicted, Riot is going for base damage nerf on Qs. So this is a range Q and melee Q are going down by base damage, especially the hammer Q is getting a huge hit. And in return, they're giving it 15% bonus AD ratio buff, and here also 15% bonus AD ratio up. So once you have enough AD, your spells will do more damage. However, no matter what, if you're playing tank Jace or AD Jace, you are getting nerfed early. There's no discussion here because the base damage nerf is bigger than the AD ratio buff you're getting in early game. They're also nerfing melee W damage per tick by 5 in early game, which is mostly an early game nerf because late game you don't care about the tick damage that much. And they're nerfing here melee R damage. What is this? I don't melee R, MR, melee W, melee R. I don't understand what I'm reading here. I'm just gonna skip this. Okay, I don't know. Misfortune. So yeah, before I go on with Jace, I think Riot completely fucked up here, because if I'm not misreading this, they're not nerfing Jace's armor and MR that he gets by swapping to hammer form, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why tank Jace is good. If they just changed the formula there, they would have completely deleted tank Jace. But I mean, base damage nerfs like you are good enough, right? Misfortune armor down by 3 and 0.2 armor growth. So she loses 6 armor in level 18, and she loses 3 armor in early game. So in total, I guess we're looking at 9 armor, right? So not much to say. Misfortune is gonna be fine. Rel, base health down by 20, good early game nerf, especially in the MMR bracket that Rel is dominant, which is high MMR, and armor growth also down by 0.3. Durability nerfs for Rel, making her a little bit more squishier. If she goes in, she can die a bit easier. I personally am fine with these nerfs, because like they already nerf Rel CC and they can't keep nerfing Rel CC. Like Rel has to have a shank as a champion, which should be the CC. So I think going for damage here is totally fine. For durability. Skarner, armor per level down by 0.3 and E duration down by 0.4. So like the biggest nerf here is for sure the E duration, E stun duration. I mean, this is really insane. So I think that if Skarner E's into ult, you probably still can flash it. I think the E duration stun is still way too long for that, but at least, you know, the stun isn't fucking lasting now, like for ages now, and you have maybe some counterplay at some point, so it's a good nerf to Skarner. Teemo on hit damage down by 5 early game and 1 later, mostly an early game nerf for Iron and Bronze, specifically where Teemo is dominant. Viego, why is the image bugged? I don't see Wukong here. Okay, that's weird. So Viego attack damage down by 3. So Riot gave 3 AD to Viego several patches ago that kind of pushed him to be a lot better. But even before that, he was being played. And the reasoning was, well, we need to buff lane Viego. So now they're walking back that nerf. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, Riot, you guys can't really decide what you want to do with Viego. Like, you can't really decide. It's really weird. Like, you gave him that buff to make him better in lane. Now you're reverting the buff that you're going to make him worse lane. So did you guys give up on making lane Viego a thing or what? I mean, it didn't really see much play, so I think it was kind of like a failure in the first place. But okay, 3 AD, it's a good nerf, I guess. Nerfs jungle, nerfs lane Viego. Wukong, so W cooldown is going up by 2 seconds. So this is really weird because, like, Wukong is meta, Riot nerfs W's. Wukong is meta, Riot nerfs W second W cooldown by 2, Wukong kind of falls out of meta. Then they buff W cooldown by 2 again, and then Wukong comes back in meta. Now they're nerfing it again. So, like, this is mainly a jungle nerf. When you nerf W cooldown, jungle is a role that will use W of cooldown a lot more than like top lane Wukong, and then E attacks with also by 5%. So I don't think this is going to be the end of Wukong. I still think he's going to be played even with W being a little bit weaker, but just might not make him as strong as he is, and maybe you're gonna prioritize some other champs before him and then pick him when he's in good spots. But in good spots, Wukong will still be OP. Attack speed cap to 3, I already commented on this, I think it's good, I think it's fine. Camptech Soul, below 50% health buff, goes from 11% to 13%, so good job Riot, you should have done this years ago. Electrocute. One of the most questionable changes that Riot is making next patch. I really think this is very risky, I think this is a very bad idea. Electrocute base damage is going up by 20 and 50 at level 18. So why do I think this is a bad idea? Because this buff moves the game into the direction that Riot doesn't want it to be, which is burst champions, which is champions having too much damage, which is runes doing too much damage, which is champions killing each other too fast in lanes and stuff like that. That's what I see, right? So I think this is a very risky change, and I think Riot is missing the mark here. They think that, like, this is mostly an early game buff, by the way, because 50 damage on Electrocute at late in isn't as big as 20 in early game, right? And Electrocute is mainly a rune that is very powerful from level 1 to 7 or 1 to 9. So anyway, so the reason why I think it's missing the mark is because a lot of champions will not be able to swap to Electrocute anyway, because they need like sorcery tree and precision tree too much on mid lane. But the champions that really get buffed here are champions like Bard and like rain support on bot lane specifically, because you can proc electrocute off cooldown. Now maybe some mid lane champs get some love here, like Ahri could maybe swap to electrocute, right? And if you have a good matchup, you can perma proc it, Aurora and LeBlanc and stuff. But yeah, I just think it's very risky to give this rune so much damage. Dark Harvest goes up by 10 base, damage per soul up by 2, so I still think electrocute is a bit better in most cases. Halo Blades, melee attack speed up by 30% and cooldown down by 2. So Pyke, Cho'Gath, Vi, this is champs that boss plays on top lane, and maybe some other melee champs like Echo are getting a very nice attack speed buff for melee characters. Now the cooldown being down by 2 seconds, even for range, is very risky again, because we don't... I hope Riot doesn't want the game to come back to Ashe and Varus bot lane, right? Where you go double Halo Blades and you make people not play the game and you have to only do lane swapping. Guess what? They're gonna nerf lane swapping. We're gonna get to that. Anyway, very risky change. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Halo Blades being in the game. I think the design of the rune is very hard to balance, and it just makes the rune just promotes very unhealthy gameplay patterns of how champions trade with each other. So I'm not a big fan of this rune. System nerfs Bloodsong, increased damage melee down by 2%, duration down by 2 seconds, so even for range, right? So it's a nerf to melees. Like there's like Pyke support that uses this. I don't know what, I don't even, yeah, Pyke support. There's like maybe Pantheon uses this. There's like range supports like Sona who use this. It's a nerf. Bloodsong is slowly moving out to be a lot worse, and well, I think Dreammaker is by far the best support item, so victory to Nami, victory to Sona, to Soraka, to all these champs, Emilia. Cloud Soul, move speed increase back to 15%. I think this used to be the old number. I think Cloud Soul will still be very strong, a little bit more conditional, whether you have good move speed champions, but still a very strong soul, so don't worry about that. Voracious Atakhan status duration increased. Void Grubs, we have the damage here. So melee champions will do 6 for every 1 second. And range champions will do 3 instead of 4. So melee champions are getting hit harder here than range champions. If you have Grubs, okay, that's very important to know. And also, yeah, Grubs are just a lot stronger melees because of the number here, 8 to 4. But now it's gonna be 6 to 3. So it's like Grubs are still stronger melees, but the nerf is not as bad for range. Zazak Realm Spike, cooldown up by 1, base damage down by 5. So one thing I don't really understand here is that why they're nerfing this item. This item is so fucking trash. It's the worst support item in the game, I think. It's so trash. It's gonna nerf like Zyra and Brandil, Noila, and Vel'Koz overall, and no one else uses this, so not sure what to say. Very disappointing. I think this is a mistake. I think they're either going to have to rework this item or maybe rebuff it, because I think it's gonna be too weak. Required elite for champion bounty devolution reduced by 60%. Losing team bounties fully turn off 50% sooner. When objective bounties spawn, champion bounties are fully suppressed for the losing team. So I'm gonna play and see what happens with this. Sweep play, we don't really care. And I thought there was a change here, which I can't really find, but I thought Riot is gonna nerf turret fortification. I'm gonna try to look this up if I can find it. I saw this Reddit thread right here, and I was reading it earlier, and I thought there was a turret fortification. I'm trying to... There's no turret fortification? Oh, okay, it was SpiderX on Twitter. So I was saying that Riot is trying put on PB that turrets are going to be 80% tankiness again instead of 50. So to try to nerf lane swaps, because lane swaps are happening left and right in pro play again, right? I don't know if it's gonna go through. I hope it does, but I think Riot is kind of missing the mark. They need to make support and jungle item get a lot less XP first 5 minutes of the game. So, or first X amount of minutes, so people have a much harder time swapping to mid lane or top lane with experience. Like supports being mega underleveled would be a huge issue, right? So that's kind of where I see it. They need to do something about lane swapping. I think even if you put 80% turret fortification, yeah, sure, you're making lane swapping worse, but people are still gonna do it because they already did it before, right? Electrocute is probably compensation for losing Ghost, yeah, Eyeball Collection. It is, yeah, this is why, but I just think it's scary to buff a rune like that, give it so much base damage, because it's like 7, like, you have to understand, imagine you play a matchup where like a mage or something can proc electrocute on you very easily. Like it's like a Aurora who does Q auto Q and she procs on you. And you don't have like, you're just like a champion that has little range or something and you can't really dodge it that well. She's gonna be proccing that rune so often on you, and that rune is gonna be doing so much damage. It's like an extra spell on you every 15 seconds. Like, you have to understand this is really strong for laning. Very, very strong. Anyway, that was my patch preview rundown. Not sure how much the game's gonna change. Some of the changes I think are not very pro play focused. Some of the changes are a bit pro play focused. And that's kinda it.